See the top of it, so you can see. Can't really see. You see yourself?
I see, yeah.
Still clear. Can you sit back on the chair? Sit back and up. Yeah, because you're going to see, you see where you're going to see the tap of it. Okay. Does the chair go up?
That's a good question. Yeah, but
See if it goes up.
okay.
Come up, Nancy. No. That's it.
See if you can get.
Okay, try to see if it goes up. Maybe it's high up as it goes. It's on the side, right? That's it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Press your mute button if you can hear me.
Not even.
I think that'll be.
Does anyone else hear that buzzing in the background?
No. It's okay. It's on before.
Working.
Okay, Mary, I've got you. Mr. Banks, do you want to unmute and Mr. Zulkowski? Mr. Zulkowski's on. Mr. Banks, do you want to unmute your mic? Mr. Banks, bottom left corner of your screen, do you want to unmute your mic? Okay, we've got Mr. Banks, we've got Mr. Zulkowski. We have our witness. Now, let me just tell everybody, if something happens and you get disconnected, these are for the people who are not the participants or not the witnesses. You can go to the wicourts.gov, hit on the live stream tab, go down to Milwaukee County, and then hit branch 22. You should be able to see it, even though we don't let you back in, but you can see it live and still on YouTube. So that's the way to get back in if you lose a connection somehow. With the attorneys, obviously, I have to have them on the line the entire time. But I've now turned on the recording again. It is now live on YouTube. Anything from the attorneys before we start up again?
Not from the plaintiffs, Your Honor.
Not from the defense, Your Honor.
All right. Do we have the court reporter back on? Bill?
Trying to see here.
I see.
Yes, you do, Judge.
Okay, excellent, excellent. All right, why don't we get started again then?
You know what I'm talking about? Mills.
I believe, Mr. Banks, you were questioning Mr. Mills. Mr. Mills, are you ready to proceed?
Yes, sir.
All right, do you understand you're still under oath in this matter?
Yes.
Okay, all right, Mr. Banks, why don't you continue then?
Reverend Mills. Not sure if I asked you this question. If I did, forgive me. When did you authorize Kim Zulkowski to sell the church building?
I believe it was in June. In June, I believe.
Of 2020?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, June. Or, I can't remember, sir. Honestly, I can't remember. But
Okay, that was recently?
Not really. It was recently, but not real recently. Like within the last scope of the last 6 months, let's say that. 6 to 8
Do you
months.
know when actual brick and mortar of the church was sold?
The date, no, I can't remember the exact date. I'm sorry. I really can't.
Is it your testimony, though, that
All right, Mr. Banks, you're cutting out again. The farthest it was, is it your testimony that, and then it stopped. So,
okay, I'll rephrase it.
okay,
That's the problem with these computers, as you
right.
I'm sorry, Reverend Mills. my question apparently didn't come through. I'll ask it again. My question is it your testimony that when you authorized Ms. Zulkowski to church, that the mortgage was in arrears, meaning behind, the church was behind on the mortgage payments?
Yes, sir.
Do you recall Bishop Daniels loaning the church $15,000 to pay the bills and the mortgage?
No,
You have no recollection of that?
no, sir.
Okay. Did anybody ever tell you that he loaned the church $15,000 to catch up on his mortgage?
No, not to my remembrance.
Okay.
Seemed like he should have been, okay.
I'm sorry?
Seemed like he would have been the one to tell me if he did. You know, I'm the pastor. I was the pastor, but no.
You were the pastor in September of 2019. You don't know what happened with
Okay.
respect to anything that Bishop Daniels did afterwards, correct?
Right.
All right. And you would agree that once you retired, and I'll strike that, election that Bishop Daniels actually did in September of 2019 appoint Pastor Sinclair as the pastor of Rehoboth?
Would you please answer that again? I can't hear.
Absolutely. My question is, is it your recollection that Bishop Daniels did actually appoint Pastor Sinclair as the pastor of Rehoboth in September of 2019, albeit short?
I remember the day that he came in. That's the day he made him pastor, but he didn't have my blessings.
Okay. Regardless of him not having your blessing, you do agree that he actually did appoint Sinclair, or Pastor Sinclair, excuse me, for to be the pastor of Rehoboth, correct?
I believe that's in your file or on your record. I believe so.
Okay. You mentioned earlier that there was a meeting after the first polling that was done by Bishop Daniels. You recall that?
A meeting? Yeah, I think so.
How soon after?
Don't ask me. I don't know. I really don't know.
Okay, let me finish the question, then answer it. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
What happened?
We're trying to get a transcript so that there's a question and an answer without any breakups. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So my question is, first of all, whether you recall the date or how soon after your last service preached where you retired, did this meeting take place with allegedly some of the members of your former church?
I believe sometime in September.
That meeting, do you know who that was with? Was that with members of the church, or the what you might consider the board of the church? Do you know?
Yeah. I believe that was Brother Stan. I believe that was Sister Tammy and my sister Pearl, and I think Kim was there. I was there. I can't remember I can't remember who else was there. So, but we did. I remember the meeting. Yes, sir.
And what was the purpose of that meeting?
Well, yeah, they were so despondent in regards to what had happened and how things was going, and we discussed just leaving, exiting the Church of God in Christ because of moral and spiritual, reasons, and how I was treated and disrespected and deceived to some degree, and that was the reason. And the church could not heal. We felt that the church really couldn't heal, unless we got things straight. They wanted me to, make sure we got things straightened out. And I worked as hard as I could with, everybody, including every party to get things straightened out. It just seemed there was so much deception and evading and going on. And then this person tell me this and this person tell me that in regards to, like you mentioned about the meeting, that when the bishop showed up, I wasn't notified that he was coming. Then somebody called me and said the bishop is coming. That's when I found out that he was coming. See, things like that really was boiling up. So that's what was on my mind. So it's been a long, seemed like a million years ago.
Well, you just mentioned something that's interesting. You said that you got a call before Bishop Daniels showed up. You recall that?
Yes, sir.
So you did get a call before he was in the building.
Yeah, somebody said he was coming. They said he was coming. He was at the door. I think somebody said the bishop coming. And I said, is he? Come on, let him come on. But they didn't tell me that he was coming to take no, they didn't tell me he was coming to take no vote. I had no idea he was going to take a vote, because with my understanding that he was going to wait, because he had found out, I had told Superintendent, not Superintendent Rousey, but President Robinson, that I was not satisfied with the situation and that we had to make some, some changes. And he said he would let the bishop know, and we was supposed to, it's a whole lot that was supposed to go down that didn't go down because I couldn't meet with the bishop. That's what happened.
All right, I'm going back to this meeting that took place. This meeting that was called, was this a church meeting or what was this?
Which one what meeting you talking about?
I'm sorry, the meeting that took place the Sunday after you officially retired.
That was a board meeting.
Do you recall whether or not official notice was given to the board members?
Yeah.
Was it?
Yeah.
In writing?
By phone.
By phone?
Yeah, I don't know. I can't remember by writing or not, but I know by phone. I'm not sure that Tammy wrote it. I don't know, but I know they was notified, definitely.
Do you know if Deacon Pettigrew was ever notified?
He was supposed to be. I don't know whether he was or not. I really don't know.
If
during that time, Deacon was kind of not. He was out of town. I can't remember, sir. I know one time he was out of town. When all this something ugliness started, he was out of town. Him and his wife were somewhere in California. Yeah, I believe. Yeah, he was in California.
Is it your opinion that? I'm sorry. I want to make sure you finish your answer.
Yeah, he was in California. I don't know whether they notified him or not, but I know it was my intention that he would be notified. But
Your Honor, if I could just interject, this is a TRO hearing, and I know that there is a lot of testimony and a lot of evidence that needs to be developed, and we're still on the first witness. And I just ask that we move to, the specific issues that we're here for, because Superintendent Robbins testified that September polling didn't have any effect, and the January 26th polling is what they're relying on. And I understand that there's testimony that there was a meeting in September where the board agreed to leave the church and sell the property. And that's what we have so far. And I think that it's important that we move to the relevant issues, because the real question is whether the local members should be allowed access to their church currently. And I know that deals with control, and we're sort of dancing around the subject, but it's taking a lot of time to get there, and we're going back and forth asking the same questions about the same issues.
Okay.
Judge, counsel is the one who put all this in play. This is going toward disaffiliation. This is a meeting that they allegedly had. So I'm not sure what counsel was talking about, and we're doing these objections on the record with people listening. That's not appropriate.
All right. While I understand, and I do know that we do have to move this on, I am going to allow Mr. Banks to bring out his case if he feels this is relevant information. As long as it is relevant, then I'm certainly willing to listen to it.
Just for the record, counsel is the one who bring all this stuff up about affiliation, disaffiliation, and stuff. I would like to move on to the actual hard facts, but they put it in play.
All right.
I'm not sure if the witness answered my question or was in the middle of asking it because counsel interrupted him.
All right, can I ask the court reporter to read back the response?
I beg you. Oh, read it back.
Question, I want to make sure that you finished your answer. Answer, yeah. I know that he would be notified. He was in California. I don't know. Your Honor, I object.
All right. Let me ask then, was that the entirety of your answer, sir?
Are you speaking to me?
Yes.
Judge, it's hard for me to remember, but Deacon Pettigrew has been retired because of his health challenges. So I don't know whether he was notified, but I believe he was. But he was somehow retired. He wasn't active, during that time. I don't know, but I do know everybody was, notified that I contacted, that I was able to contact. Now, as far as who the secretary sent the letters to, I don't know.
All right. Are you done, sir?
Yes, sir.
All right. Here's a question I have for you. Was there ever in this meeting that took place any discussion about, I believe you mentioned there was some discussion about leaving the Church of God in Christ?
We was all emotional. I was hurt. Some was angry and some were disappointed. We discussed leaving the organization because of what was going on. Yes, sir.
Okay, my question is this. Was there an agreement, anything put in writing by the board or anyone on the board or at the direction of the board that you were trying to disaffiliate with the Church of God in Christ in September of 2019?
I believe so, but I'm not sure.
You're not sure?
I believe so. I believe it's in a letter, but I'm not sure.
All right. Was that ever, did you ever push that through or anybody try to push that through?
I don't remember. I know what we said that night and what happened that night. I thought it was sealed, and agreed upon, and that was it. So I don't know. I didn't follow through myself. I didn't follow through, let's put it that way.
All right, so you never followed up. You haven't followed up to this day as to whether or not that was withdrawn or if somebody actually took it further than a letter being sent. Is that correct?
No, I assume that it was. Let's put it that way. I assume that it was, but I'm not sure. That's all I assume that it was, but I'm not sure.
All right. Do you have any evidence? Oh, strike that. Do you know what's required for a local church to disaffiliate with Church of God in Christ?
A letter of dissatisfaction, I'm assuming.
Do you know? Now, I don't want you to assume anything. My question really is, do you know what is required for a local church to disaffiliate with the Church of God in Christ?
I don't know personally because I haven't had that experience.
Another question for you, that special meeting that took place in September after your last service, do you know whether or not that special meeting was announced in the service before that meeting?
I assume that it was. I don't know.
That's why I'm asking you if you know, sir.
I don't
Do you
know.
know?
No,
Again, so there's a full question and answer. Do you know whether or not that special meeting was announced in the Sunday preceding the date of that meeting? Do you know?
I don't know.
Okay, thank you. Do you recall having a meeting with Bishop Daniels after that Sunday service when you retired?
No,
No recollection of having a meeting with you and Kim and others after you retired?
I can't remember. I met with him sometimes trying to plead with him, you know, my reason, but I don't know. I've had several meetings with him, but I don't know. I don't.
Was Mrs. Zulkowski present? Do you know?
And me that were with him, yes. But I know.
And do you recall that there was an agreement that another polling would take place?
I don't remember that. I don't remember that. I don't remember that. I don't remember that. No.
You don't remember that?
I don't. That's happened before. No.
All right. Do you recall that Bishop Daniels was the interim pastor until a second polling was to take place?
That was this. Yeah, he said he was taking over.
Right.
But
Let me back up and make sure the record is clear. He actually indicated on the day that
There you go.
it was announced that Pastor Sinclair would be the pastor. He would be the interim pastor until the first Sunday in October. Is that correct?
Was he the interim pastor? I can't remember, sir. I can't remember.
All right.
I really can't remember. Not as
All
young
right.
as
That's all I have for this witness, Your Honor.
All right. Mr. Zulkowski?
Reverend Mills, do you recall who purchased the building in 1972?
Yes, sir.
Who
Pastor
purchased
Wallace,
the?
Pastor Wallace, Willie Mills, James Wright, and someone there, but I think they did now. Pastor
And-
Wallace was the main one, and I was there.
Where did they get the money to purchase the building in 1972?
From a bank in West Dallas called West Dallas Savings and Loan.
Did any of the money come from the National Church of God in Christ?
No, at that time we were not a part of the Church of God in Christ. They had disbarred us for something that the bishop and my pastor had disagreed upon, and we were not a part of the Church of God in Christ when we purchased that building.
Do you recall the testimony where there was a discussion about the reason that you authorized the sale of the property? Let me ask a different question. You talked about a friend who loaned you money.
Yes. The reason that I was so concerned about that building, even Sinclair being a pastor, the mortgage was behind. Mr. George Gary had told me about how churches were folding because they wasn't getting loans, and and we were behind with our mortgage because we wasn't getting enough revenue to make all our payments. That was one of my concerns, and I wanted to make sure that he got his money. That's why I was so concerned about putting a pastor in that could work with the people there, that would contribute and keep on keeping on programs so we could make money to make sure that man got his money. Because I didn't want him to suffer the fate that some of the other banks had suffered that were trying to help Black churches and the community. That was the main concern, because he had worked with me sometime.
When you talked about some can you describe the racial injustice that you experienced before getting loans that led you to call him a friend and loan the church money?
Yes, it was hard for Black churches to get financing in the Milwaukee area. You know, and Mr. George Gary.
Your Honor, I'm objecting. Your Honor, my computer froze. I was objecting to relevancy.
Overruled. We can answer for now.
Reverend Mills,
Yes, sir.
can you continue describing that racial injustice?
Yeah, as I said, it was hard for Black churches to get loans, and a lot of them had to end up getting land contracts to purchase building that they desired to have, and it was, you know, paying a lot of excess money, so forth and so on. But I didn't want to see. I wanted to take care of our obligation. I wanted Rehoboth to flourish, you know, and that's why I worked so hard for that purpose, you know. And this man was nice enough to loan us the money, and I wanted to make sure that he got his money back. That's why that was my main concern.
And is it fair to say that if the church needed money in the future, you wanted to make sure that you would have an ability to get the money in the future,
Yes,
correct?
sir. Yes, yes. And I want him to have a good relationship with the church. So if something happened, you know.
Can you talk about what you did yourself to support the church with, and I guess, let me ask first, what was your key source of income? What was your employment?
I worked for Briggs and Stratton for 38 years. I worked for another company for about 4 years. And I didn't retire until 2004, I believe. But I worked.
Did you contribute your salary to the church?
Yes, sir. My church service, 90% of my church service went to the church in church reports, even the district that I was trying to supervise.
And did you invest your personal funds into the church to keep it going?
Many times, yes, sir.
Did the local members invest their personal funds into the church to keep it going?
I don't remember, but I don't remember any local member investing money to keep it going. I don't know, but I'm sure they gave the offering and the tithe, you know. But the expenditure was very high in that area for that building because the maintenance was very expensive, and I had to do a lot of maintenance work myself along with my deacon that was able to help.
I don't have any more questions, Your Honor.
Thanks.
I just have a couple more, since he just opened up a door. Reverend Mills, you just talked about money that you gave to the church to help keep the doors open. Isn't it true, though, that there were accusations of suspicion that you might be taking some of that money?
I don't know. I only heard this since I got here.
But you have heard that, though, correct?
I heard that since I got retired, but didn't know. I never heard that because there was no reason.
Yeah, but the point is, there were members of your church who accused you over the years of taking money, unauthorized money from the church till, correct?
No. I heard that not over the years, no. Only recently when all this stuff started when I was retired. The thing about retired, no, sir.
Let me ask you another question. We talked about the reason that you wanted this friend at the bank to get his money.
Mm-hmm. That was
when you claim that the church was behind in their mortgage, was your brother-in-law the treasurer of the church?
Yes, sir, but he had been treasurer for a few months. My real treasurer had left town. He moved before I did, and he was good too.
Sure. And your sister was the agent for the church, agent for service and process?
Yeah, yes.
So this was a lot of family members involved in the upper echelon, correct?
A lot of the family members, most of the one that supported the financial aspect of the church. Yes, a lot of yes.
Did others support the financial aspect of the church?
Yes,
Who were
to
not
some,
family members?
to some degree. But like I said, there's only limit to what people could do, you know. So we put on special, my family helped put on fundraisers and different things to help raise the money to meet the financial obligations of the church. My family helped me more than anybody, and I appreciate that.
But again, you would agree that there were many, many members of the church who also contributed to the financial welfare of the church, correct?
Some did, a few did. It was
Just a few?
just a few.
Okay, that's all I have, sir. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Zulkowski, anything else?
No, Your Honor.
All right, thank you for your testimony, sir.
You're welcome.
Mr. Banks?
Our next call, Ron Owens.
Do we have Mr. Owens here?
Yes, sir, Your Honor.
All right. Mary, do you want to swear him in? You need your microphone, Mary. Oh, Mr. Owens. Oh, okay, here you go. Mary, you want to turn on your microphone?
I figured as much. That's why I don't.
Sorry about that. If you could please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I affirm.
And if you could please state and spell your name for the court record.
Ron Owens, Owens.
Thank you.
Mr. Banks?
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Owens, would you please indicate
Okay, Mr. Banks, you cut out again. You said, Mr. Owens, will you please indicate, and that's where you cut out.
Okay, can you guys hear me now?
We're good now.
Okay. I was asking Mr. Owens to indicate his current occupation.
Work for an equity fund.
Can you give us a brief description of your educational background?
A grad school, divinity.
You have a degree in divinity?
No, I have a degree in political science.
I'm sorry. That's what I was asking. Okay. You currently hold any positions with Church of God in Christ?
I am the National Codification Committee, which is the holder and the bearer of the doctrine and discipline of the Church of God in Christ, its legislative actions by update and by amendment and by mandate.
All right. Do you have any connections with the first jurisdiction of Church of God in Christ?
I am the CFO of Wisconsin First Church of God in Christ.
As the CFO, can you tell us what your duties and responsibilities are in general?
To give a full accounting and accountability of revenue taken in, revenue dispersed. That includes revenue towards jurisdictional mandates, churches, offices of the jurisdictions, stipends, and even in most cases, the keeping track of the reimbursements that most of which our jurisdiction functions under comes as a reimbursement from our jurisdictional bishop.
Are you familiar with the Rehoboth Church?
I am.
And were you, and I'm going to try to cut to the chase as much as I can, were you present in January of this year when a polling took place at the church after due notice had been given?
I was.
Objection to form.
Overruled.
I'm sorry, was that over? I didn't hear Judge.
It was overruled.
Um, with respect to the polling, were you there throughout the entire polling that was taking place?
I was.
Did you have an idea or understand why a polling was taking place?
Yes, to give a recommendation and only a recommendation to the suggested appointment of pastor of that church.
By the way, do you pastor a church yourself?
No,
Are you aware of the constitution of the Church of God in Christ as to who has the authority to replace a retiring or retired pastor?
I am.
What is your understanding?
I would tell you that the Church of God in Christ has a General Assembly, and I am the chairman of the Codification Committee. The Codification Committee ratifies, defines, organizes both new amendments and interpret old amendments. The sole authority for the appointment of a pastor of a jurisdictional church within that jurisdictional bishop's guidance is his sole responsibility and authority.
Are you familiar with the Constitution of the Church of God in Christ, where it discusses a local church whose bylaws might be contrary to the Church of God in Christ bylaws or constitution?
I am. It is enlisted in 3 separate categories of the Book of Doctrine and Discipline of the Church of God in Christ. It says that no church shall have documents or bylaws that are of offense to the doctrine and discipline of the Church of God in Christ.
What does it mean to have offense as against to the doctrine or the constitution of the Church of God in Christ? What does that mean?
To call itself not under subordinate authority of the jurisdictional bishop or the work of the national church.
I want you to assume something. I want you to assume that a local church has articles of incorporation that indicate that the bishop, the jurisdictional bishop, has the ability or the duty to appoint a pastor and with the majority vote of confirmed members. Is that against the Constitution of the Church of God in Christ, in your opinion?
Absolutely.
And if there's a conflict between the local church and the national church, which governs, in your opinion?
The national.
I want to talk about this. Let me back up for a moment. Are you familiar with what is required for a local church to disaffiliate with the national church?
I am.
Can you explain to this court what's required of a local church to disaffiliate from the national church?
Your Honor, I'm objecting to this line of questioning because these are legal conclusions and he hasn't been designated as an expert.
It is true, he hasn't been designated as an expert.
Nobody's been designated as anything.
I agree, Mr. Banks. And that's part of the issue with this being an injunction hearing versus a case in which we would set up a scheduling order, designate witnesses and file written reports. In this case, the court is going to allow the testimony from both sides as to what their interpretation is, knowing that, and I know counsel did cite in his brief the 3 types of law that are typically applied and what Wisconsin's law is. I know I did have an opportunity to review that, but the court will allow the witness to answer that question.
Do you need that read back? Thank you, Your Honor. Do you need that read back?
No, sir.
Okay. Please answer.
It requires a multitude of steps. One of the steps first always must engage the local jurisdictional bishop. It must be given written notice to the local jurisdictional bishop. It must be written notice and or notification of the congregation of the will of the congregation to withdraw from either the jurisdiction and or the Church of God in Christ. There has to be several CC copied letters that go both to the National Secretary of the Church of God in Christ, the Chairman of the General Assembly of the Church of God in Christ, in a written notice to the Secretary and or the General Board of the Church of God in Christ.
So it's true that the actual congregation has to also be engaged and party to this request for disaffiliation.
Yes, it is not a pastoral action. It is a full congregational action along with a full participation of the jurisdictional prelate.
And in addition to that, does the board of a church have the power to disaffiliate without the members being notified or involved?
The congregation, not the board.
Okay, thank you, sir. Let's talk about this day when the hearing took, not strike that, when the polling took place in January. You were present, correct?
I was.
What was did you have any involvement in the polling?
I was not a voter. I was there as a jurisdictional officer to assist and to validate the counting of the ballots as if I would be trusted the same way with all of the jurisdictional money.
Do you know one way or the other? I'll strike that. Do you know who the jurisdictional bishop was at the time?
Bishop Sedgwick Daniels.
Had you ever accompanied Bishop Daniels to any congregation anywhere where a pastor was being appointed by him?
Yes.
Can you tell us what his usual protocol is or was prior to January 25th, 2020 with respect to appointing a pastor?
He has had the same set of questions for his entire term on the general board, but he follows the doctrine and discipline. He shares with the church that he will take a search committee that is an opinion committee and that he may not go accordance to the committee. He then polls the church with an affirmation from the doctrine and discipline that he does not have to poll, but he does it to bring about congregational consensus.
Thank you for that. I'm sorry, did you tell me what your involvement was with respect to, excuse me, before we go on, Your Honor, there are some issues that are going on.
Yeah.
I'm watching some chat stuff come up accusing this witness of reading something. Saw that,
Yes.
Your Honor.
I saw that as well.
All right, Jacob is now going to be kicked off the call. Unfortunately, I did indicate to everybody that they can't be messaging in the chat itself. I indicated they could join on live stream on youtube.com. But that person is going to be kicked off the Zoom hearing. All right, he's now off the hearing. Counsel, I haven't looked at the commentary and I'm not going to look at the commentary. The only items I put on there was the fact that there shouldn't be any comments. And secondly, the YouTube stream link. So why don't you continue?
All right, Your Honor. By the way, I wasn't worried about you, Your Honor. So thank you.
Right.
forgot where I was. I'm sorry, Bill. Can you have a court reporter read that back to me again? I apologize.
Question. I'm sorry, did you tell me what your involvement was with respect to, excuse me, before I go on?
Okay, thank you. I know where I am now. Thank you. My question to you, sir, was with respect to your involvement in
We lost you, Mr. Banks.
Good.
oh, okay. Can people hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I don't know what's going on over here. This technical stuff is crazy. In any event, my question is, can you tell us if you had involvement with the polling, what that involvement was?
That involvement was to count the ballots that were placed on the table in front of the entire congregation.
So can you tell all of us basically how the balloting took place? Can you give us as brief of a description as you can?
The balloting took place